Okay, so we are getting towards the business end of the year, especially if you are sending a Year 12 student off to school. We only have a matter of weeks now until Year 12 exams kick off. A whole lot of schools have demanded that university applications go in so that kids know what they're doing next year, assuming they're going to go to uni. Today on the podcast, a conversation about careers, career counselling, and what your kids are supposed to do when it comes to the end of school. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families podcast. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson. This is where you get real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Amy Dyer. Amy Dyer is a careers counsellor with more than 20 years of experience working with senior school students in schools around Queensland. Her aim is to empower students and parents to make informed decisions regarding senior schooling and vocational and tertiary pathways. We will link to Amy's details in the show notes. But Amy, really glad that you've joined me on the podcast today. I'm putting my fourth daughter through Year 12 as we speak. She's about to do her final exams. We're literally living it and going through everything that's associated with it right now. And the scaling conversation is one that keeps on coming up. And it's one that I sort of dismiss with a wave of the hand and say, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. But for parents who are really concerned about how their students' subjects, how their child's subjects are going to be scaled up or down and where they come in the class and in the cohort and that sort of thing, what does this really mean?
Oh, yeah, this could be a controversial answer because it's not going to suit the narrative of all schools. So scaling is something, if we're going to keep it really simple, where there is a governing body and they determine what subjects scale higher or lower. Scaling simply means that there is a decision that has been made by somebody else, not the school, that determines that, for example, a higher level math is harder to achieve well in than a lower level math, but that spreads across the entire curriculum of subjects. So when we're talking scaling, there are a lot of myths out there, and I spend a lot of my day busting those myths. But essentially, from my point of view and from my opinion only, I look at scaling as important if you are wanting, needing, or know you can achieve an ATAR of about a 95 or higher. When we're playing in that upper end of the ATARs, we do need to look at scaling. Unfortunately, there are just some subjects that if you choose to do them, they could limit your ability to get up into that range. But I guess the question, Justin, is whether or not you need to be in that range, because there is a way to get into any course and any outcome and any career, irrespective of ATAR. And that is the job that I essentially do, working with students to look at what's direct and what we can use as a backup to get to uni. But if we start talking about scaling and making sure that we're doing subjects that get us up into that high range, I think what we're essentially doing to our students is teaching them that the purpose of learning is to get the best result possible. And as you and I know, if we can look at our time in industry and time in work, we're not actually about the best result. We're about the most appropriate result, what works for our business, what works for our day-to-day world. And that doesn't have to mean that we have achieved exceptionally well. It just means that we know what we're doing and we're capable and we actually enjoy what we're learning and what we're working toward.
Amy, let's go there. I was going to come to this later, but you've brought it up. Tertiary pathways. Well, first of all, I just have this belief that children shouldn't be going straight to university. So here's my question for you. Gap years. Over the last, I'd say 10 years, I've shifted enormously from maybe to almost definitely, except in the rarest of cases. Now, that's a fairly extreme position to hold, but where do you stand on gap years? What are your thoughts?
I'm with you there, Justin. I would say that there was a point in time where I was the same as you, that just be careful. We don't want to stop the momentum. We want that, that learning to continue from school into university and then into industry. But recently there has been, and when I say recently, I'm thinking somewhere in around the last 5 to 10 years, there has been a certain change that we just seem to be seeing high levels of burnout with our students. And I find that I'm having a lot of conversations with students where they're saying, I just need a minute. Yep. I just need to finish year 12 and I just need a minute. And I think because we go back to this narrative all the time of what is success, when you're in a school system, success is the ATAR. That's the ultimate for most students that are eligible. I find that if I'm having a conversation with my vocational students, that is not their narrative of success. They have found a different way to work through their schooling, and they have a different idea of what their goals are and why they're working in the way that they are. But those that are working in an ATAR narrative, we are looking at success based on the number that they achieve. And I will often ask students, do you have a number in mind? And they will simply say, yes, I do. And I ask, if you don't achieve that, how will you feel? And I do hear, certainly through a wide variety of clients, that it can look like failure if they don't get to that number.
So university, a couple of quick ideas here, and I'd love to get your support or any pushback on what I'm about to share. First off, I failed year 12. I mean, I keep on talking about how I graduated year 12, but I think that's an inappropriate term to use because I scored on the bottom 15% of the state. But I did complete year 12 somehow. I got a piece of paper that said that I was finished. So I finished school somehow. I got to the end of year 12. Had a radio career, media for nearly a decade, and then went back to TAFE and then university as a 27-year-old and stayed for 8.5 years, full-time study, and ended up being a doctor. I have a couple of friends who have done similar things. In fact, I've got one mate who finished school halfway through year 11, just hated it, and then went on to go to university later in life and became he's now a specialist working in hospitals in South Australia. All of this is to say, we make such a big deal about getting into your first preference or getting into university or whatever it is. And I feel like there's just so much angst and so much stress around it completely unnecessarily. Tell me where I'm wrong, or am I dead on here?
You're dead on. That's a big one to unpack. And I think I want to start with saying that when I meet with students and we are having genuine and authentic conversations about their interest areas, and I don't talk to them about their results at all. I ask them about the way in which they process information, how they like to learn. Are they problem solvers? Are they communicators? I ask them a simple question like, what does leadership look like to you? And because we don't ask students these questions, because they're not wrapped up around assessments, they actually don't really know how to answer some of these questions. So when they are picking a course and when we've sort of narrowed it down to a few areas, I'll find there's often hesitancy when we're looking at courses that have a high ATAR. And I will ask them, is this because this is not something that you're thinking is for you, or are you worried you simply can't get the ATAR, so you are going to exclude it from your choices? And more often than not, students are putting those invisible barriers up because they think, well, I can't get to that ATAR, so therefore that can't be the career for me. Even though after all of my questions that I've asked them, it would be a great fit. So that's when we have the conversation about what a pathway can look like.
Let's talk about vocational studies and trades. My contention, my hypothesis is as follows. We have a trades shortage. We don't have enough houses. We don't have enough electricians. We don't have enough plumbers. We don't have enough people who can build stuff. And our country is only getting bigger. And therefore, my sense is that if you've got a child who wants to get into any of the trades, manual trades or even the indoor trades, there is going to be so much demand for their services that they will be able to forge a successful career, make all the money that they need, and do just fine in life. Two questions here. Am I right? And how do we reduce the stigma for kids who don't go to university, given that only 30% of Australian adults do have a university degree?
Well, that's a big question, and one that I actually feel genuinely passionate about. I've grown up in a family of tradies. I personally went to university, but I have a number of trades that surround me and they've been extremely successful in their lives. I think that we as parents need to do our research on the school we are sending our student to. And I might be making a broad statement here, but we don't know who our children are when we start them somewhere in prep. So for me, if I was looking for a school that was able to support my student whichever way that they decide to grow and develop, I would be looking at a school that comes from the angle of, do they offer a broad curriculum? And can my student or can my child be successful in school with a trade and can they achieve well with an ATAR if uni is for them? So we have our state schooling is amazing for that. They have one of the most broadest curriculums that they can to suit all the different learners that go into our state system. From the private sector, it is a business, and they are going to choose the narrative that best suits the clientele they're aiming for. So some private schools are going to be very heavy in vocational. Some are going to balance their curriculum across both, and others are going to stay in that more academic space. None of those schools are right or wrong. They all have a place. We just have to make sure that if our student is at a school where you're feeling it's not going to meet their needs moving forward, that it's okay to make a move. It's safe to make a move, and it will allow your student or your child to be able to develop a skill set that aligns more with who they are as they grow and develop and as we learn who they are.
Okay, so my segue into my final question, how does, other than maybe listening to a conversation like this, how does a kid in year 10, year 11 or year 12, or even a 24-year-old or perhaps even a 46-year-old who's listening to us talk now, how do you decide what you're supposed to do with your life?
You start with your best guess and see where it leads you.
I'm so glad you said that. I literally just put my hand up in the air. This is what I keep saying to my kids. You're not supposed to know. You just try.
Yeah.
You just try stuff.
Yeah.
Just be productive.
Absolutely.
Just do something.
And I want to also add to that, I just want students and parents out there to genuinely hear, just because you don't follow the crowd doesn't mean you're not learning and not continuing to develop your skill set. I genuinely think it's a better type of learning when you get out of what is such a standardized system that schools are, and you take a minute to work out who you are.
Amy Dyer, what a delightful conversation. I really hope that parents will share this with their kids who are going through those senior years of school, and hopefully it will lead to some great discussions over the dining table about what to do, how to do it, and when to do it.
Yes, I hope so too, that they need that safe space to be able to come up with it on their own.
Amy Dyer is a careers counsellor. You can find her details at amydyer.com.au if you'd like to engage with Amy and see if she can offer the advice, support and direction that you might be struggling to find in your family with your kids. Amy, delight to talk with you. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Coulson from Bridge Media. More information and resources to make your family happier available at happyfamilies.com.au.